All right. Hello and welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm your host, Ed Rabyd, former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. I don't see anybody in the chat yet, but hopefully that'll change as I'm on a little bit. There's that. I'm doing today what I would call a deconversion hangout support live stream for those of you who are leaving the faith, thinking of leaving the faith. It's an idea that I had almost as soon as I became a little bit more comfortable with live streaming. There's a couple rules. One, you have to be a subscriber to the channel to participate in the chat. I do that because it prevents what I would call the theist drive-by commenter, the troll. It gets rid of that, but it also, yeah, it doesn't help me out with another subscriber, sure, but it also blocks people just coming by and being a nuisance. And I don't want that on this type of stream. I am very much focused on this stream with people. If you're deconverting, if you are reconstructing your life, you're deconstructing some of the things in your life, this stream is probably for you. This is the time that's convenient for me. I'm really not going to pull out and say, oh, what time is convenient for you? I have a life, I have a job. And so this is the best time for me to do this. Now that I'm live streaming about 3 times a week and doing 3 videos a week, the live streams allow me to do more stuff like this, which is help you. Now, I am not an expert in deconversion. I've just been doing it since 2016 myself, and probably before that, because the whole process of leaving your faith is much, especially if you're heavy into it, is much longer and much more complicated than just, I had this moment where I no longer believed. Although I do have that moment with Christianity, and I kind of have that moment, in a month in June of 2016 where I was taking a sabbatical, where the last vestiges of my faith kind of disappeared in God at all. So this this stream is very much about answering your questions in chat. If you're struggling with something, just ask. If you feel like there's some feeling that you're having that's a struggle, just state it. I'm trying to make this a very protected space. I won't say it's completely safe. I don't really believe in safe spaces, but I do believe in like environments where you can talk freely. And I think this is going to be one of those places. Now, I don't know how well this is going to do at first. I'm going to keep doing it for a couple of months to see how it goes and see whether we can build a group of people that wants to talk about this. Now, I'm going to post all this stuff on my channel because I think it might help people that can't be here. So, so I do want to acknowledge a few people that are kind of in the room, but I want to thank Captive Death for becoming a member. I think this happened my last live stream, but I want to acknowledge it again, seeing it's there. Thank you very much. I appreciate all my members there what support efforts like this and many others. Hey, Lisa, it's been a while. I think I've seen you around, but it's been definitely a while. So thank you for stopping by. I appreciate that. Of course, we have Fred. Okay. All right. Thanks, Fred. Appreciate the well wishes. Fred's a good supporter of the channel. Been by many, many times. Last Frybender, thank you. Appreciate you. I'm gonna kind of start off with an issue for me. I think it's only fair that I talk about something that I'm dealing with deconversion, and I have struggled with what to call this because I've noticed it like for the last 3 or 4 years, dealing with it. And so, really? Okay. Well, whenever you're ready, Lisa, if you're struggling with something, just let me know. I'm here to support. That's what this stream is about. We're all fighting something. Hey, BS, welcome. I've been having an issue. Issue. You too, huh? I'm autistic, and so my anxiety is always there. I think it's one of the deconversion issues I try to get across to my family is that some of my behavior is and my feelings are not my fault. Okay, they just exist. Anxiety is one of them. Depression's another. And it's like the hypersensitivity and the autism kicks me in the ass, but anxiety is always an issue for a lot of us deconverting. It's I often wonder, like with anxiety, okay, when we talk anxiety inside the faith, how many doctrines, how many um, theological concepts reinforce anxiety? You know what I'm saying? I mean, from the doctrine of hell to the whole are am I good enough for God uh, stuff. When you look at that stuff, right? How much of that reinforced our anxiety? I was constantly nervous about what God thought about me. Okay, when I was still in the faith. And I wonder if, in a lot of respects, that reinforced my anxiety about things. So, uh, even, yeah, yeah, I think this is a good list. The whole hell, demons, witchcraft, apocalypse, the whole, how much of that really reinforced our anxiety all the time. And I think helping to realize that a lot of that is that holdover of, you know, building up our anxiety about a relationship with God, building up our anxiety about, oh, I don't want to go to hell. These demons are everywhere attacking us. We got to worry about, Punk Apostate has a great list here. The end of the world. Am I good enough for the rapture? Am I good enough for this? Am I good enough for that? And I think that's one of the things that kind of reinforced a lot of our anxiety. And now that we're out, those psychological reinforcers are still having an effect on us. Okay. It's when people ask me why deconversion is an issue and why reconstruction is an issue and deconstruction is an issue, it's this type of issues, this day-to-day anxiety, this day-to-day depression that I experience. A lot of that um, is reinforced by that. And then you'll have moments, where that'll come up again. And all of a sudden it's the default to go into being anxious. Okay. Because other things, have already reinforced our anxiety. So deconversion and coming that, deconstructing the reasons that make us anxious can be helpful. I don't know if you ever really get over the anxiety training that you've gone through inside the church. So there's that. Oh, Hayward, welcome. Uh, you know, interesting you mentioned that. Maybe at least I can be a little bit helpful here. My dad died 30 years ago. Um, I was religious at the time, and I don't think I ever really came to terms with his death until after I became an atheist. I think one of the big helpful things in becoming an atheist is you accept death for what it is. And if I relied on my dad a lot. I don't know what your relationship was with your dad, Lisa, but my dad and me were tight, and I also experienced a lot of anxiety since after my father died about what am I going to do? I don't have this person to ask for advice. I don't have this person to lean on. I mean, just the emotional support my dad gave me was gone. And yeah, I get it. Okay, I absolutely get it. So I feel for you. That's a tough one, but I do know. Okay, I see. All right. Yep. That's a big hole now, isn't it, Lisa? Okay, and you're anxious about what to do with it. Okay. Yeah. All right. But we were close. Yeah. Oh, Lisa, I feel for you, hon. Okay, I really do. I've been through all those feelings. My dad died suddenly, so I didn't even have time to prepare for it. But I absolutely feel for you. Um, I'm not going to say that I completely understand your feelings because every relationship is different. But I can tell you this: coming to terms with the fact that he's genuinely gone is very much more helpful than believing that you're going to see him again. I can tell you that. Um, that was my experience. So my heart goes out to you. I appreciate you. Um, and appreciate the fact that you took care of your dad for so long. That's pretty cool. So, um, yeah, I want to get back to the anxiety thing too. I know I feel like I'm jumping around, but it's like I'm trying to touch on the issues that are touching us right at the moment. Um, but it's like you can't trust your own choices because what is your choice being based on? Is it being based on something you learned in religion, or is it being based on something that's genuinely real? Um, you know, uh, Man, that's a tough one because I dealt with that probably for 3 straight years after I became an atheist. Because particularly when I was in the pulpit, what was I basing my choices on? It was a constant thing. So um, I think that's fair. I constantly was worried about whether the choice I was making was a right one, and I get what you're saying. It's it's difficult to base your choices purely. No choice is purely based on rationality, and you start to question: is this based on my stuff, or is it based on my religion of the past? And yeah, it causes a lot of anxiety in the sense that you're constantly wrestling with: is this the right decision for me, or the right decision for the situation? And I wrestled with that for a long time. I will say this: that you do get better over time. I don't think time heals all of this. I think that's a myth. But I do think that time can give you a better perspective on it. I wish I had better answers. I know when you do support groups, so everybody's like looking for the magic bullet, and there really isn't a magic bullet to solve your problem. There's no werewolf to kill with a silver bullet here. It's really something that you have to deal with on a daily basis and just get better. I really felt like I couldn't trust myself because, okay, if I was wrong about all this other stuff, am I wrong now? Okay, and that becomes a real issue. Let's see, we got Lisa. Thanks, Lisa, and Azzo's here. Um, yeah, uh, yeah, appreciate that. Yes, I think when we deal with grief, this is very much the truth, Lisa. I have a lot more freedom on how to deal with it. Before, when I was in faith, it was like the only option I had was just to think of them being in heaven and I was going to see them again. And I just needed to be a better person to make sure that that happened. Now I can go to my therapist and say, I'm having trouble dealing with my memory of my dad. I can do that. Or I can get help, or I can talk to other people about it. I feel like one of the things that deconversion has done for me is like I feel much more comfortable talking about what I'm going through than I was in the church. Because it feels like when I was in the church, you're always masking, and that fit my autistic masking. So I was never letting anybody know what was really going on. It really led to a lot of problems. And I think that's one of the things that not being a believer allows me to do is say, hey, I'm having a problem here. Can you help me out? Yeah, I would agree with that. We have these choice-based narratives, and it's always based on doctrine. Okay, what's the right belief? What's the wrong belief? Um, so there's that. It's an emphasis on whatever. There's always a pat answer in the church. There's always a black and white pat answer in the church that says this is how you make your choices. This is what your choices are. This is how you make them. So um, yeah, it's not a it's not so much rules anymore, or you got to avoid this because it's sinful, or you got to go after this because it's righteous. Um, so that's help. Yeah, Lisa has a good one. Set of rules, choose the best option. Okay. Um, being mindful. Yep, very good solution. Yeah, I. This is what we're talking about because the finding God's will, okay, issue was always there for me. When you're a pastor, it's even worse because what what's God's will? What should I preach this week? What should I teach this week? I'm dealing with this person in the faith. How do I do that? The amount of decisions that I had to go to God and pray about was just mind-boggling. And it does become paralyzing. But when you're a pastor, you have to act, and so eventually you just push your way through a decision and hope it's God's will. And then you go, oh, that really screwed up. It must not have been God's will. Then that's my fault. And it's like, now it's like, no, okay, it's just a bad decision. There's no God giving me guidance. There's none of that stuff. So it's, it's becomes more of a, okay, people make mistakes and we're not perfect and we always don't always find what's best for us. And that's okay. We can rebound and we can recover from that. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of support stuff out there for grief. If you're a secularist, I think it's one area where secularism does a really good job as far as support is dealing with grief, and you'll find a lot of grief support groups are not religiously based. So, um, oh, Ian, oh, you're from Michigan. Okay, me too. It's cold right now. It's not as cold as it's been for the last couple of days, though. Oh, you saw my interview. Yeah, me and the harmonic atheist have a. I think my interview with him is still one of his top five, and I think it's because I talk about being autistic. I also talk about what it's like to be just a regular pastor. I'm not a mega church pastor. I'm not the guy that had the thousands of people. I'm a guy who stood in front of 30, 40 people for 20 years preaching a message. Uh, I still think that that's one of the best things I've done on the internet is did that interview. And you're very welcome. I've been speaking out now for 5 years, and I don't suspect that I'll be stopping anytime soon. So thank you for your support. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, this is the other thing about support groups is learning to accept support. Okay. Um, yeah, we did that, didn't we? We did that. We prayed for what college to go to. I don't know. Um, Man, the things I used to pray for, and it's like, just make a decision, just to make a decision. Yeah, you're looking for a sign, and then you read Jesus's words, and even an adulterous generation looks for a sign. So, am I right for looking for a sign, or am I wrong? Should I be like Gideon looking for a sign, or should I listen to Jesus' words and just trust him and not look for a sign? The anxiety-inducing mental gymnastics of all that. I'm so glad to. So there's that aspect of it, and so when I look at my anxiety, there's a lot of that, looking for signs, looking for karma, looking for whatever, and I just don't do that anymore. Getting rid of all that, just when you get rid of all the extra Yakum razor, all the stuff that's not necessary, there's a lot less to make you anxious. Okay, so oh, you're very welcome, very welcome. um um oh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I know that when I'm anxious about something, the best thing that somebody else can do for me is just be there and say, "Hey, I'm with you." Okay. I know that sounds overly simplistic. Maybe there's more to it. I don't know. My issue at that point, when you're supporting somebody with anxiety, is I'm not sure you're going to get rid of their anxiety, but you're trying to help them get through it. For me, that's kind of the way it goes. I appreciate, like at work, when somebody says, even though I'm masking and I don't look like I'm anxious. That's one of the things about being autistic. You mask a lot, and they come up and say, "Hey, you know what? I think we got this." Or just being positive in the midst of their anxiety, that whatever choice a person makes, like we're talking about choices, whatever choice you're going to make, there's going to be positives and benefits. And if something goes south, I'm here for you. Okay. And I can help you. Being a good human being, I think, helps a lot. So, let's see. Oh, Jesse, I feel for you so much. I'm laughing with you. Oh my God. When I got my call confirmed into the leadership, as a pastor, it was somebody who said to me, "I think God's calling you to the ministry." And I took that to heart. And as an autistic person who was a kid, I didn't really have a way to filter through that. And then there was a song that came on, and it kind of confirmed my call. And I'm like, I look at it now, I'm like, that was contrived. Okay. Those people deliberately did a song like that to reinforce whatever it is you were already making a decision about. That's the one. I'll pull away the curtain behind the bullshit the church does right there. A lot of times they're creating a mood, and they're creating a thing that already confirms what you already want to do. Okay. And then, that's God's will. That's what you want to do. And so once you get rid of that, that's gone. That's kind of nice. But I'm laughing with you. It's funny what I used to think confirmed my God's will stuff. So I just don't deal with that anymore. Yes, they do, and they're full of shit. I'm so tired of that. It's not demons, it's neurology. Okay, and it's probably most likely genetic. Although there are some environmental factors, but I don't. I think for me, there's a lot of autistic people in my family tree. Now that I look back at it, but oh, thank you, Jock, and welcome. Yeah, I've been around for about 5 years, but this is the first time I haven't been streaming very long. I mostly just do videos. And with streaming, I saw the opportunity maybe to do a support group like this for people deconverting and going through stuff. Um, it's kind of one of that thing. So thank you for coming by. I appreciate the fact that YouTube put you up in the feed. So, oh, that's another thing about this stream. I am not monetizing it with ads. Um, so I'm leaving this so that I don't like it when people get interrupted when they're talking about this stuff. So, yeah, it's the problem when you have when you have a spiritual answer for everything. You have to have a spiritual answer for everything, like Christians do. You spiritualize these issues and you make them into demons, or you're just not right with God or whatever. And it's like, cast all your care on him because he cares for you. Why are you being anxious? It's like, I'm anxious because my neurology notices shit so much that it makes me anxious. Uh, Statements and conclusion that ought statements that successfully crosses the ought gap. Oh, yes. Great circular reasoning there. Okay. It is because it is. Okay, that's awesome. No, it's circular reasoning. He's basically saying objective morality is objective morality because it's objective morality and it ought to be that way. I don't know. From my perspective, that seems very circular. And it's damn sure an assumption that he doesn't prove. I mean, I know these conversations happen in your real lives and I'm trying to help you with them, but it's like it is because it is. I mean, would a theist accept that about other things, without the evidence? I don't think they would, and I don't think you should accept that without evidence either. A necessary ought. What I have yet to hear them prove a necessary ought in the first place. Okay, I would ask for that. Um, um, oh, it is laughably bad. Okay, you need to form that second part is definitely circular. So there's that point. Uh, oh, what didn't make sense to me when I was a pastor of the second faith I believed in? Well, I belonged to two different ones. I was in Assemblies of God Pentecostal for a long time. I definitely challenged the initial physical evidence. That was my first kind of like, I don't see that in the Bible kind of thing. Um, the Assemblies of God has this, belief that the Holy Spirit is demonstrated by speaking in tongues, and that's the initial physical evidence. And I was looking at all the things in Acts, and I'm like, sometimes it just doesn't say, and pointing that out uh, to them, it just didn't make sense to me. Um, the Bible being inspired, being verbally inspired by God, didn't make sense to me once I took Greek. Okay, okay. The Assemblies of God believes in the verbal plenary inspiration of Scripture, like God got the exact words that He wanted in the Bible, and it's like, if that's the case, then God isn't very good at editing. Okay, He just isn't. And that was something that started. That was the beginning of the end. I mean, my intellectual deconversion started back in Bible college. My emotional one took a little while. Okay, that's what I try to get across that every once in a while. That intellectually you can give up faith and realize that it's all bullshit long before emotionally you separate yourself from it. It's the emotional separation that's the most difficult part. Walking away from my church, walking away from my pastor job, was far more emotional than it was intellectual. It was very difficult to do. And, I kind of made it easy on myself. I often think that I was autistically self destructive at the end of my ministry because I wanted out so bad. I did stupid shit so the church would fire me at times. I do feel like that was the case. But, so there was a lot of things that didn't make sense, and I always try to emotionally justify them. And that's why when theists come here, they get pissed off at me because I'll say you just have an emotional attachment to your faith. Well, that's just damn true. Okay, and they just don't want to accept that. But the intellectual shit, I started discarding. There was a lot of stuff, the end time stuff, the pre-trib, premillennial bullshit that the Assemblies of God has for its end time scenario, the apocalyptic bullshit. It's like, how do you read the book of Revelation and get anything sensible out of it is beyond me. So, yeah, there was a lot of things there. When I became a Congregationalist, there was a lot less shit because the doctrinal statement in my church was so very basically Christian that, it, it it would have been hard for any basic Christian not to come there and be a part of it. Okay. They deliberately did it that way. So, very liberal Christian kind of atmosphere in some ways. Yeah, that's what I'd say to name. There are no objective moral truths. And I would challenge people that want to converse with you that way, prove that there's an objective morality. And I say, well, God's commandments, nope, subjective because it's subjective to God. That's not objective. Okay. And it's why I rejected objective morality a long time ago. And I don't even think that's a proper way to discuss morality anymore. So, yes. Yeah. The pre-suppers love that one. Yeah. And that's the problem. Until you get them to consider whether or not objective morality is even a real thing or get them to understand that their morality is also subjective to the God that gave the commands, that's your big hurdle. The rest of the conversation isn't going to go anywhere until you get that across to them. So, uh, yes, I've actually heard that hymn. I've sung it a couple of times. With You don't have to give them necessarily a win, but I think you could say that the conversation is kind of there. Okay, that it's kind of stopped because until they accept the idea that possibly their morality is subjectively based and not objective, they'll never get off that hill. So, um, but yeah, man, I'm trying to remember this hymn. I really am. Yeah, because the thing about the hymn, and I get what you're getting at, is there are many hymns and other doctrines of the church that talk about how God is in control, but then there's doctrines that say that the whole thing was given over to Satan and Satan's in charge. So I don't know. Yeah, there's many contradictions in Christian theology, and that's probably the biggest one. It does the world belong to God or does it belong to Satan? I think that's it. But yes, you're saving yourself a headache. So yeah, it is question begging. Yep. Yeah, the Trinity. I was thinking about this just yesterday. What is the Trinity? What is the doctrine of the Trinity? The more I thought about it, it says it's an attempt to make polytheism into monotheism. That's what it is. I really think that the Trinity has become, and it's one of those doctrines that after a while, what I'm really thankful for? I don't have to reconcile that anymore as a non-believer. I can just accept it for what it is. You have God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. I want to throw Mary in there. It's a pantheon of gods that they're trying to make into one God. Okay, and so it's just one of those things. So yeah, it would yeah. That's the problem with the hymn. Fraternity test. Yeah. Um, that depends on your denomination. The Assemblies of God was big on women preachers for a while. They were never really fond of women pastors. They always made that distinction. When I became a Congregationalist, nobody gave a shit. So it really depends on what people look, that aspect of it. You're going to find that different groups have different views on it. But for me, it's one of the examples. Like even within the Assemblies of God, you're still got a sexism there because there's certain few roles that women still can't go into. Because supposedly the Bible prevents it, or maybe it does. Um, so yeah, it's that aspect of it. But I don't think if any denomination or church looks at the Bible, you're never going to escape the sexism of it, where women are put in their place. Yeah, I mean that's kind of why I've kind of reopened my political side. I'm trying to be very cautious about what I deal with because, as I said in my video yesterday, compassionate anti-theism means I still treat my opponents like human beings because I don't think we get anywhere in pushing back against the bullshit by being dicks. Okay, I think it's why I think the Democrats lost. They come off as highbrow. They don't come off as common man anymore or talking to the common man. And I don't want that to happen to the atheist movement either, where we become so preoccupied with how right we are. And we got to build relationships even with people we disagree with. And that's the hard part. Yeah, that's probably accurate. So there's that. Yes, that's right. United Pentecostal Church. Yeah, they're modalists. So different modes, right? The Father is a mode, the Son is a mode, but it's all the same God. Yeah, yeah, that's usually the way it ends up. I used to preach the Trinity. Oh man, that was a hard subject because it's like they're all in essence one God, but they're three different personalities. So does God have multiple personalities? Is that the problem? So, and it's when you're deconverting, it's this kind of logic that you don't have to deal with anymore, that just makes your brain just feel more rested. So definitely. Go ahead, BS. I'll let you have that one. Just as I am. Look at the trees just as I am. Oh, that's a good question. This is probably the best question we could ask all the time, is navigating it with your family. I can tell you what my approach is. Every moment I'm with my family and religion comes up, there's two things that are going to happen. There's going to be awkward silences because you don't want to push it too much because you want a good relationship with your family. And that's kind of the decision I made. Do I want to be right? Or do I want to win an argument and be right? Or do I want to have a good relationship with my family? And I think when you're discussing things with religious members of your family, that is never going to be a good topic. Okay. There's never going to be a good topic um, for you to build a relationship on, unless you're the kind of people that can have disagreements and grow your relationship through disagreement and come to better terms. If your family is very open to listening to why you are the way you are now, then I think you're okay. But if they're kind of, real fundamentalist and you're going to hell and all this other stuff, I think it's a topic that's probably just not a good one. In my case, I have family members that are believers, and I choose to build a relationship with them instead of being right about the discussion about God. Now, they can be the ones that are the problem, but I'm not going to be the problem. Okay, I've made a commitment not to be the problem. So, no, Earl, you're fashionably late as always. I give you that one. Actually, Lisa, if it's the Trinity, he's tripolar. I don't know what that is, but that would make more sense. Oh, that's a tough one. I have not been asked to pray over everything since I left the church, so I guess I have that advantage. I'm no longer a pastor, and I don't want to deal with it. And I've made that pretty clear. Um, I don't know. Come up with an atheist prayer. Okay, you know, thank the farmers for the food. I mean, I don't know. Just don't thank God. You know, I mean, there's ways of. You could also just defer and say, I would rather somebody else do that. I think that's a perfectly fair thing to say, that you would rather have somebody else do it. Um, it's not just the. So, yeah, that's another good question. You know, it's one of those things that causes you to do. Because yeah, it does, doesn't it? uh, real. Um, I was a preacher, so once I realized that God was a thing, that was devastating on a multiple levels. If you're not unfamiliar with my deconversion story, it led to an emotional state where, you know, I was looking for comfort in anything, and a young lady came along and tried to offer that to me, and it almost ended in disaster. So it's well, it did kind of have a disastrous turn, and the stripping away of it was a very emotional difficulty because I remember I was a pastor at the time when I went to my father's grave, now no longer believing that I was going to see him again. And for the first time, I had the emotional flood of losing my father for good. And that was very hard. I feel like I think when I lost my faith, the best way I can describe it, it feels like your best friend died because you've had this relationship with this imaginary friend that you created called God. And now it's not good. Okay. And all of a sudden that's gone. And you're realizing you're talking to yourself, and that's okay. Self-talk's an okay thing, very common in most people, but it's like it was very much a feeling of losing my best friend, losing my career, losing my ground, all of that. So I don't know. I feel for you because I've been there. For me, it was a very emotionally ripping time when I lost my faith. I remember I was in the pulpit and I'm like, now I'm questioning my career choices because I'm basically teaching fraud. I'm making my money off of fraud. Now, before that, I wouldn't have said I was being dishonest because I actually genuinely believed it was real. But once I realized it wasn't real, I'm like, what the fuck do I do now? Okay. That's there was a lot of emotions in that for me, but yeah, it was gone, so there's that. Yeah. If John hadn't done what he did in his gospels, the Trinity may not have happened. I think that like the JWs are closer to the reality of basically what the text says Jesus was, a very big Superman, but not necessarily God. Always welcome, Earl. You know. uh yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, there's a lot of moral questions when you're deconverting, and I think this is a growth when you start to realize that a lot of the morality stuff in deconverting is more about how we get along as humans. It's inherent. I think some form of morality is inherent to every social species. That's why I think the whole subjective objective argument is nonsense now, because I look more at morality as what develops to make things better for everybody. Okay. We're always looking for the betterment of the group, betterment of the individual. And so it's empathy and learning how to get along and learning how to do better things. So there's that aspect of it. So, but yeah, one of the questions in deconversion is morality. What do I base my morality on now? Is a big one for deconverting. So, uh, yeah, washing your hands before you eat is probably a good move. Yeah, that's probably a good move. Probably afterwards too. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good answer. I can't really pray now. I need to go wash my hands. Can somebody else do it for me? That might be a good way to get out of that too. So I don't know what to tell some people about that other than that you got to take a lot of this stuff now with humor inside. I mean, you got to not like be a dick to your family about it, but it's like at the same time, it's like you got to protect yourself and your own integrity at the same time. So there's that. Ooh, well, good luck. No, to support you in that. That's very common. I'm very see because when I was a young preacher and very much a fundamentalist, my best friend was like this real pagan guy, and he's still my best friend. But now he's the religious one, and I'm an atheist. And boy, how times have changed. How times have changed. So there's that aspect of it. Yeah, just to Ian, if you haven't seen these, yeah, when people lose their faith, they cry about it. They they have an absolute fit for. Uh, so I mean, I get it. I really do get it. It's it's a tough one when you lose your faith, but yeah, if you're going to go see your family, you always have to now think about that, don't you, before you go when you're deconverted and you're no longer the religious one. I think it's the awkward silences that get to me now because I've gone to a lot of family events since I've left the ministry. I have never been asked to pray since. Okay. And so that's been a positive. At the same time, when I have my weekly meetings with my daughter and my mother and my grandkids every Friday morning, um, there's always these moments where they want to talk about church. And my mom still attends the church that I was a pastor of. So that gets even more awkward. And making the commitment to I'm not going to be a complete asshole about this and get all emotional about it keeps the relationship, keeps us talking. And It's a hard one. It's probably the most difficult thing we deconverting people deal with is dealing with our religious family and friends and not being it creates awkward silences. It creates a little bit of distance at times. It feels like maybe you know it's that okay. And so you have to tread. It is a kind of a minefield to walk through very carefully, but I think you can navigate it. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good question to ask. Why does an existence of a creator make morality good? That's a good one. I've after I deconverted, I think I played that song 100 times. Losing my religion. Um, yeah, that's another thing, guys. You got to take some of this with a lot of humor. You got to find the humorous side of it. I find that laughter and laughing at things really does help. It does help the deconversion process. So it's absolutely that. That's one. Yeah, yeah. Emotions aren't sufficient, but there's other things. So yeah, valid point. Ooh. Isn't that the case though? There are certain religions that do that a lot. They set you up to how to, one of the things in my deconversion process I did is I taught a class on comparative religions. And you're teaching it as a pastor, so you got to show how all these other religions are wrong. Well, then you get to your own. And like, okay, if I use the same criteria, what happens to my own? Oh crap, the same thing. And so I absolutely feel that. That is hilarious, but I feel it too because it's one of those moments like, I don't know if my religion is any better than the rest of them. And that gets to be an interesting discussion with people too. Yeah, I think so. I think so. That's the other thing. Like terms God bless you and all that stuff. I would say um those are euphemisms. It's like Christopher Hitchens, I think, did it once when he said, when I say God knows, I really mean nobody knows. But he says it's like it's ingrained in as part of our culture. And so we say these things, like God knows, God bless you. I have noticed an interesting phenomenon at work. Okay. And I don't know if it's because people know that I'm an atheist, because I've never really been openly overt about it. But then again, I'm on YouTube, and if people want to research who I am and are curious about who I am, they're going to run into my channel. But I noticed that, like, when people sneeze, it's bless you to everybody else but Ed. So I find that very interesting that they don't bother to say, when I sneeze, it's like, oh, God, bless you. They don't do that for me. They do it for everybody else, but they don't do it for me. So maybe that's because they know. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, it's these cultural euphemisms that we have. I don't think that's the problem. I used to wrestle with that for a while, for a couple of years, but it's like I don't know if I can escape it. It's like when there are so many references in American society to the Bible that are just euphemisms that we use, and so it's okay. So that's it. Um, yeah, okay. I don't know. Maybe I'll thank Lisa, the rainbow giraffe, instead. Um, that I'm not forced to pray that. Um, for you, okay. I think the best way to describe it to somebody who's never been a believer is finding out. I guess today we have a lot of good modern examples. Like I'd say catfishing is a good example of what people go through. When you find out something isn't what you thought it was and you've invested all this emotional time and energy into it, people being conned through products that are cons. I think that's one way to look at it, because I was having a debate, apparently interrupted because the person eventually decided to become a dick on my last video, where we were talking about, and I pointed out to them, I think the reason I do this is I think religion is a con. And I didn't get a chance to get back to him. I was at work yesterday. I pull up the app on my phone. There's 16 comments on that video. I get home, there's only 6, and I'm like, that conversation with Joe Friday must have went south. So, so there's that aspect of it. But yeah, the whole idea of it being a con, and then people discovering that they've been completely conned out of their money, their time, their energy, their talents, and they have nothing to show for it. I mean, imagine investing yourself in something for 40 years, and then suddenly you realize it's all a bunch of shit. Okay. That that emotion is very much a part of what deconversion and deconstruction is like. And so when you're dealing with somebody, I think those of you that have never had faith, you have a great gift in one sense that many of us who are deconverting wish we had. But I think you also have a problem sometimes with empathizing with us. Okay. And I think if you put yourself in the mindset of somebody that has been completely conned for 20 years of their life, then I think you get a better understanding of what the emotions are that people are going with. Oh, all the things that we put ourselves through. Oh, man. Yeah, sometimes that's the cost, Greg. Yes, um, it really depends on how fundamentalist your family is. Mine is kind of, they're Christians, but they're very loving people, and their religion doesn't prevent them from being that. So, and so I guess I'm a little bit, better off in that situation. But yeah, if you have like a family that just won't give it up, excuse me, then I think you'll have that one. Um, yeah, a lot of people say, you've never had faith, and you still, God bless you, but yeah, you're still using the euphemism, and being BS that has been so used. Um, when I was a pastor, I actually had congregants, people that were in my congregation, call me that. Hey, Rabyd Rabbi, it's like, God damn it. So it's not original BS, but it's still funny. Um, you know, I, somebody asked me if I would ever turn Jewish, and I'm like, no, no. I mean, it's source material, but yeah, no. Yeah, yeah. Everybody, I always get, every once in a while, I get the accusation that as an atheist, I think I'm better than everybody or smarter than everybody. And it's like, I think I was seeing that with one of the videos I was watching this week, where I think a skeptic was dealing with what's his face. I can't remember the guy's name, who's kind of an arrogant ass towards atheists. And it's like, you atheists think you're special and more intellectual. I'm like, you think that God speaks to you and that he has a special place for you because you serve him. Yeah. Are you lacking in that much self-awareness? So, um, um, there are plenty of mythologies where gods become humans and humans become gods. I think, uh, the idea of earning, I think Hercules has a theme in him where he earns Olympus. Okay, but there's lots of themes like Isis in the Egyptian pantheon and several others, have virgin birth stories or become human to understand humans better. As far as a trinity like thing, I think the problem that Christians had is they had this book, particularly John's gospel, that kind of indicate that Jesus was God. And then they had God as God. And then they had Jesus in the book of John talking about the Holy Spirit as God. And you can blaspheme the Father and the Son, but you can't blaspheme the Holy Spirit, kind of puts the Holy. And so what they ended up, you won't find the word Trinity in the Bible, but they had to come up with a doctrine to reconcile all this bullshit. And the Trinity is the result, and it's still bullshit. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, uh, man, that's one of the things that made me discard my faith from a emotional standpoint a lot easier is how confusing. And the reason why Christianity is confusing is it's all based on human interpretation. They want to say it's God, but I don't think it's God. It's human beings. And so they all believe that they've got the right thing, and I think that's one of the big problems that they have. So there's that. So yeah, yeah. Sorry, BS. Already be done. I used to get silly rabbi all the time. Tricks are for kids. So yeah, I think sometimes my family. I think the biggest concern, like some of my family members, like my kids with their kids, is somehow I'm going to influence their children to be like me. And I think I've told a lot of people I'm not into indoctrinating children into atheism. Okay, I'm just not into that. So, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and sit there and talk to my children about how there is no God, any because they don't really have a way to assess that themselves either, and I'm not, it's bad enough that church people do it and Sunday school does it and homeschoolers do it. And I deal with that issue with my family too. But yeah, they're worried that I'm going to change something about them. And it just, no, that's not the case. It's your faith. You deal with it. May the force be with you. There you go. Yeah, the real world impact. I think that's a debatable thing you can talk about with your family if you do it in the right way. Like if this faith-based initiative in government passes, don't you think that's kind of rude to people that don't believe? Is a good argument, I think. Um, so there's that aspect. But yeah, well, yeah, they're a good tool. I don't use them for everything. Yeah, it's pretty top notch on the narcissist scale. I would agree with you there. And there's some of these apologists that are right there. Oh my God. See, I did it there. Euphemism. Oh my God. OMG. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, the idea of this stream is to be here to have somebody to talk to. I am no psychologist. I'm no expert on deconversion, but I've gone through it for a while. I want place to talk about it from time to time. Maybe in the future I'll bring, somebody who wants to come in directly and be in StreamYard and talk to them one on one and see if we can come help other people too. But this is a great stream to do that. But it's been an idea floating around in my head because a lot of us are deconverting and a lot of people are deconverting and they just don't know where to turn. If you have real serious issues with leaving your faith, recovery from religion, or if you're a pastor, the Clergy Project are good resources. But sometimes we just need someplace to talk. Okay. And so that's kind of the brainchild of this one. That's why there's no ads. If you want to donate, I will appreciate that, but don't feel pressured to do so. Um, but that's, I'm here to talk. I need this as probably as much as anybody else at this point. So yeah, this is another issue because they always want to bring you back, and it's why I've titled my book about my deconversion. I titled it "Sorry, I Can't Go Back," and it's a pastor turns atheist becomes a compassionate anti-theist is kind of my subtitle, something along those lines. And one of the first things I'm doing in my introduction is likening it to the Wizard of Oz when Dorothy and her friends see the professor behind the curtain. They can never go back to the fear that they had in front of the mask that was bellowing smoke anymore. And this is exactly what it's like to deconvert. Once you see the humanness behind religion, you can't unsee it. And yeah, to me, a real deconversion away from faith, you will never go back. Okay. Because if you go back, it means you have to you have to basically close the curtain yourself and pretend that didn't happen in order to go back. And I don't think that that's possible. I know for me, I've been asked what would it take. Proving there's a God would be a good start. Okay, but so far, no luck. Hmm. Everyone's saved everywhere. Christian at 68 years. It's a big step for her, and I credit to most of the non-JW family keeping goodwill and community. And that's the thing. The reason I say it's probably more important to keep your relationships than to be right is eventually you can have the conversation in a very civilized way where people will go, no, you're right. There's something wrong there and I need to change. And I don't, it's like I said yesterday, I don't think belligerence, I don't think calling people names is going to get us there. Okay. If we're going to, we need, I saw Earl in here earlier, and I know that her and Missing Mod are friends. Well, they're on opposite sides of this belief spectrum. We need more of that. Okay. We need the friendships that allow us to have these conversations. It's really hard, though, in the internet world to find people that are going to be civil enough to have this conversation. I mean, because yesterday it's like I do that video, and what does Joe Friday do? He comes in there and says, well, these are all the evil atheists in the world. I win. That's not a person that's interested in a conversation. That's a person that's interested in winning and losing. You're giving me an example here of during the deconversion reconstruction process, you can start to see people change because of their viewpoint of view. Okay. You're not going to convince people with your words half as much as you will with your attitude about talking about it. People will respond very emotionally to these discussions. And if they have a good positive view of you, it's like the accusation that atheists are immoral. Well, if you live a very virtuous lifestyle, eventually the people around you who think that won't be able to maintain that on a very experiential basis. Okay, it's not just about having the right arguments. It's about being a good person yourself and showing that you don't need God to be a good person. So, yeah, I just don't indoctrinate. There you go. Gesundheit. There you go. That's a good one. Health. There we go. You guys are coming up with great responses to God bless you. That's awesome. Yeah, JWs are definitely a rough one. Except when, like he said, you use all the stuff that they have against other religions and you start applying it to JW and realizing, oh, crap. Yeah, logic. See, that's the thing. With content creators, okay, everybody gravitates towards who they like. But the people that helped me the most were also the ones that were the kindest. Okay. You can't escape that. Okay. The people that are controversial in the atheist space, particularly on YouTube, I can speak to this. But Logic has never been really rude to who he's dealing with. Okay. He always breaks it down very systematically why he thinks there's a problem. And sometimes he throws in the zinger, but it's like I would do that in a regular conversation with somebody who was a friend anyway. And Logic helped me a lot too. But, like Apologia, I've always loved his attitude about dealing with people he disagrees with. It doesn't mean that he hasn't also been very hard in saying, yeah, dude, that's just excusogetics, and he'll call it what it is. But it's his demeanor and the way he does things that gets people to open up to him. And I think that's the problem sometimes with us when we're deconverting is we have to find the right attitude with our family. Okay. It's like, it's hard. And it's a fine line to walk, but it's like you're not going to convince them that you're right by being a jerk. It's just not going to happen. You're just going to entrench them. Um, I have banned people in the past, and I'll tell you how you get banned. Just straight up being a dick. Okay. I want people that have conversations with me, okay, about this stuff. Um, People who genuinely ask questions and have a conversational attitude with me, I will gladly engage with, Greg, and you've been one of those. And I don't have a problem with you. I have a large problem with somebody like Joe Friday yesterday who comes onto my channel and basically accuses me of everything under the book without even hearing what I have to say, and always wants to cast me in a negative light and himself in a positive light. And those are the people that get banned. Okay, my mods, you got to understand, my mods are very protective of me. And I love them for that because I'm not always the one that sees all that stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to have a conversation with these people. And if I'm not having a conversation, then usually that's a good way to get timed out or banned. I think there's a list of people that are banned from this channel. Okay. And I've done a couple of them myself. I banned Jim Bob myself. Okay. I pulled that trigger myself and fairly early because I was not going to deal with that kind of guy. And when you're deconverting, I don't need that kind of preaching bullshit at me. Okay. I've already gone through for those of you that trying to reach your lost atheist brothers and sisters, you're not showing a lot of empathy or understanding of what they've gone through to get to this point by being a dick. Okay. You're just not, and you're not going to reach them. Okay. Yeah, it kind of is. That's another good emotional thing. Oh, that's what they've been doing. Okay. That's what religion does. What I found is interesting is why very smart people can reasonably believe and justify the belief. While I also think that is so wrong. Yeah, it's like I was saying yesterday. Not everything is never everything that you is irrational in the sense that they haven't thought it out. Okay, it doesn't mean it's true. You can say something is rational and also say it's false. It's like a rational way of looking at it. And I can understand how people get to faith because I used to be there. I understand how I rationally believed, but after a while, you just get rid of it. So, yeah, I think this is one of those deconversion issues of what do I do now? Okay. Um, so it's there. It's there. So, I don't know. I've constantly learned to learn about things, and I learn about my world, and I learn about people, and there's a bigger, wider world than your religion ever gave you. I'll just put it that way. And you need to go out and find that. So, uh, BS, I'm glad that you're here. You provide me my comic relief moments. Yeah, that's the issue you have to deal with and not react negatively, is because I have had so many people, well, how do you do morals? Don't be a dick. Okay. It's like morality is a survival mechanism. If you aren't an empathic, you know, showing empathy to people, you know, treating people well, if they do something for you, you do something, you're not going to have a better chance at getting what you want. Okay. You are a member of a social species. So learning morality is just a part of that. Okay. And so it's, and the funny thing is you'll hear these conversations on morality between a theist and an atheist, and the atheist will literally get to the theist to admit that we have other reasons to morally do what we do, but we don't have no real foundation without God. And it's like, no, we can have the same moral foundations and we can get rid of God. And when you deconvert, you suddenly realize that a lot of your morality is based on your self-interest, the interest of the people you love and care for. I had the guy mention altruism yesterday, and it's like, Even if you die for the tribe, that's still self-interest. You want the tribe to continue. Okay. And, if you die for your family, it's still a self-interest. You're trying to keep your genetics going or whatever thing going. It's like we're taught those things, and, it's all self-interest. So, yeah, it has been around because it meets those needs. I think the real challenge for atheism is finding alternatives. I mean, when you deconvert, this has been my challenge, finding alternatives. Finding meaning, belonging, value, um, all of those things. You're definitely right. I find myself, when I first deconverted, that was the big questions. Now it's like, how do I find a sense of belonging? How do I find my new group, my new society, my new, people that support me and love me and care for me? And that's a different thing. So there's that. Um, yes, this is what they really do. They do appeal to the human condition, but they give really bad answers. Okay. And that's why I'm an anti-theist. Once you start tearing apart what answers they give and realizing they don't really help, they're just a time waster. That's when you say, no. But yeah, you're right. This is why religion has a leg up on a lot of secularism, is they definitely appeal to the human condition. Yeah. I can tell a story like that, Ian. Um, I was a big Christian rock fan. I had every Christian metal group and Christian rock group from the 80s and 90s in my repertoire. And I remember after losing my faith, I went back to that and I listened to some of the songs, and it was like, yeah, it's just a love song with God put in, and it's no different than anything else. And it can really emotionally, because those things used to emotionally keep you in the faith and reinforce your faith, and now they're gone. And I think that's a that's a really powerful thing, and it's a powerful moment when you realize something. Oh yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, I pick up the snark. Okay, but Paul's personality just kind of let him get away with it. Okay, he's just such an easygoing, likable guy, and I think we need more of that. Okay, more of that. No, no, we'll let Greg be around. It's okay, asshole. Calm down. Yeah, I live in Michigan, so I deal with a lot of Canadians and their snark. So it happens all the time, and I think some of their Canadian snark has crossed the border, along with our like more European sarcasm has crossed theirs. So it's kind of fun. I have a lot of fun with it. Um, this is honestly, Aim, this is a debate for me right now because I've been told by apologists that I have to be a hard determinist if I am a believer. And I'm like, I'm not so sure that's true. Okay. I know many atheists are hard determinists because they say, well, if we just knew the science, we'd know that this is all whatever. But, then what is choice? Is it really choice or anything like that? I think you can believe in choices that are not, but you could argue then one choice is more influence than the other, and that's the one you end up taking. Okay. So I think that's the issue. But it's a discussion matter for me. But here's the thing: it has nothing to do with whether there's an assessment of whether there's a God or not. That's a completely different discussion. But yeah, it's a deconversion issue because what do I base my choices on now? Is it all fate? Is it all this stuff? You don't have that foundation anymore. I've taken a very soft determinist view of there's a whole bunch of shit that I have no control over, but there is something I do have control over, me and what I do. And that's kind of where I stand with it. So Yeah, see, this is it seems necessarily true to some others, and yeah, it has to be there. And other people say, I'm not sure that that's the case. So I think it's a debatable point for a lot of people. Oh my God. Oh, you guys are hilarious. Oh man. Oh, where am I at? Well, you guys have gotten away with me. I'm running out of time too. I got to get ready for work. So, but yeah, this has been quite successful. I wish I had more time, but I do have to run because I got to be leaving for work in about an hour and a half, and I got to get some stuff done before I do that. So, thanks everybody for stopping by. This has been very successful, very encouraging. I would appreciate a like, or if you haven't subscribed already, you have to subscribe to participate in the chat anyway. So, um, do that for me. Any help is well appreciated. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of you. Um, but I do have to run because I'm running out of time. But I think I'm going to keep this slot, and you're all welcome here to talk deconversion every Thursday from now on until we don't. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate all of you. As always, live your best life. You only get one go around, and then it's over. So you want to take all your time, money, and opportunities and give them to yourself, the people you love and care for, and to make this a better world. You'll be happier if you do. And as always, guys, thanks for stopping by, and I will catch you next time.